All right, so I want you to imagine something for a second. You're looking at a map of the world, but not, the map you see in a classroom today. We're zooming way in on the Anatolian Peninsula, what is now modern-day Turkey, in the early 14th century. And if you are picturing this solid block of color for one country, you need to just wipe that image from your mind completely.
Right. Instead, you should imagine taking a hammer to a pane of glass.
Exactly. That is the perfect visual. It's shattered. You don't have one big unified nation. You have all these jagged little shards, these tiny microstates, and they're all fighting for survival. And right in the middle of this mess, there's a man named Orhan.
And if you were a betting man, looking at that map in 1326 when Orhan takes over from his father, Osman, you wouldn't bet a single coin on him surviving, let alone building an empire that would, eventually span 3 continents.
And that's what we are unpacking today. We're doing a deep dive into the sources on the rise of the Ottoman Empire under Sultan Orhan. We're going to figure out how he pulls off this absolute Houdini act, because he starts completely surrounded by enemies who are stronger, richer, and frankly, way more established than he is.
It really is a masterclass in strategy. I mean, Orhan's story isn't just about having the biggest army, because he definitely didn't, not at first. It's a story about psychological warfare, some incredibly bizarre alliances, and, knowing exactly when to just sit back and let your enemy defeat themselves.
Okay, so before we get to the battles, let's set the scene for you, because when we say surrounded, I feel like that is a bit of an understatement. We're talking about a geographical pressure cooker. Who exactly is squeezing Orhan?
So picture the Ottoman state. It's this small buffer zone, really, in northwest Anatolia. To his east and south, Orhan is totally blocked by rival Turkish Muslim states. Specifically, you have the Karasi and the Karaman.
And these are not friendly neighbors popping over to borrow some sugar?
No, far from it. These are bitter rivals. The Karaman especially, they saw themselves as the true heirs of the region. And they were scary because they had a massive backer, the Mamluk Sultanate.
Right, and the sources really emphasize this. When we say Mamluk, we are not talking about some local warlords. This is a superpower.
Absolutely. The Mamluks controlled Egypt, the holy cities in Saudi Arabia, the whole Levant. They were the undisputed heavyweights of the Islamic world at that time. So Orhan has that pressure from the east and south. Then you look west and north, and you hit the Roman Byzantine Empire.
The Romans. Now, I think for most people, when you hear Roman Empire, you think Caesar, legions, togas. But in the 14th century, they're a different kind of beast, aren't they?
They are. I mean, they're certainly past their absolute peak, but they're still the Romans. They have Constantinople, which is basically an impregnable fortress city. They have centuries of prestige, wealth, and the backing of Christian Europe.
So Orhan is caught, a Muslim superpower proxy to the east and the Roman Empire to the west.
It's the definition of a two-front war before the war even starts. If he moves his army east, the Romans can just stab him in the back. If he moves west, the Karaman attack from behind.
So what's the move? If you can't fight both, you have to pick one, right?
Exactly. So Orhan looks at the board and he decides his best shot is to go west. He decides to target the Byzantine lands in Anatolia, specifically a region called Bithynia.
Bithynia, why there? Is it just because it's closer, or is there more to it?
Oh, it's pure strategy and geography. Bithynia had these key cities, like Bursa and Nicomedia. Orhan realized if he takes these, 2 things happen. 1, he secures his flank against the sea, and 2, he basically pushes the Romans off the Asian continent entirely.
So he starts squeezing these cities, besieging them, and I'm guessing the Roman emperor sitting over in Constantinople isn't just going to watch his cities fall.
He certainly tries not to. And this triggers a pivotal moment in 1328. The Byzantine emperor, Andronicus III, gets seriously alarmed. He realizes these aren't just border raids anymore. This is an existential threat. So he gathers an army, about 4,000 troops, and he marches out to fight.
4,000? That doesn't sound like a huge number, even by modern standards.
It's not a massive number, no. Even for back then, it wasn't a grand army. But the context is huge. The emperor himself is leading them.
Why is that so significant?
Because it had been a long, long time since a Roman emperor personally took the field against the Turks. Usually, they'd send a general. By marching out himself, he was sending a message. This threat is critical. But ironically, by doing that, he actually legitimized Orhan.
How so?
He elevated Orhan from just another tribal chieftain to a rival monarch, someone worthy of the emperor's personal attention. He gave him clout just by showing up.
That is a fascinating backfire. So Orhan hears the emperor's coming. Does he dig in for a siege?
Nope, he moves to intercept. They meet at a place called Maltepe. near modern-day Izmit. And this is where we really see Orhan's tactical mind at work. He gets there first.
Speed is everything.
It is. He takes the high ground. He positions his foot soldiers on the mountain slopes where they are clearly visible to the Romans coming up the road. But the real danger is what the Romans can't see.
The hidden card.
The cavalry. Orhan hides his Turkish horsemen, who were, expert archers, down in the valleys and behind ridges, right along the path the Romans have to take.
It's a classic ambush setup. You dangle the bait on the hill and wait for the enemy to walk into the trap.
And the Romans walk right in. The emperor is marching, probably feeling pretty confident because, well, he's the emperor. And then suddenly, archers strike from the flanks. The Roman army is thrown into total confusion. But, and this is the key insight from the text, it wasn't the arrows that won the battle.
It was a rumor.
Yes. In the middle of this chaotic skirmish, a whisper starts tearing through the Roman ranks. The emperor is dead. The emperor has fallen.
Do we know where that came from? Was this like 14th century psychological operations?
The sources are a bit ambiguous. It might have been a calculated plant by the Ottomans, sending spies to shout it out.
Yeah.
Or it might have just been the natural fog of war. But honestly, the origin doesn't matter as much as the result.
Which was just pure panic.
Total collapse.
Yeah.
You have to understand the Roman mindset here. They saw the Ottomans as this ordinary tribal group, barbarians. To be ambushed was bad enough. But to believe their emperor god's representative on earth had been killed by these tribesmen, it broke them.
So the whole army routes.
They flee, they break formation, and they just run back toward the safety of Constantinople. The emperor wasn't dead, obviously, he barely escaped with his life, but the damage was done.
It's fascinating because, looking at the numbers in the source material, Maltepe wasn't a slaughter. It wasn't some bloodbath where thousands died.
No, militarily it was a skirmish, but psychologically it was a catastrophe. The Romans had 1,000 years of history telling them they were superior, and this battle proved they weren't.
And the sources say the aftermath was even worse than the battle itself.
Oh, it was. The Romans basically just gave up. They stopped sending military supplies and food to their cities in Bithynia that were under siege. They just looked at those cities and said, "We can't save you."
That's just brutal. It's a complete loss of political will.
And a besieged city with no hope of rescue is just a waiting room for surrender. So one by one, the key cities of Bithynia fell to Orhan. The Roman presence in Anatolia was, for all intents and purposes, wiped out.
Okay, let's pause and look at the board again. Orhan has secured his western flank. The Romans are licking their wounds across the water in Constantinople.
You'd think this would be the start of a huge standoff, right? Muslims on one side, Christians on the other. But then the story takes a turn that just feels incredibly cynical.
Enter John Cantacuzino.
This guy, if this was a movie, he's the character the audience is just screaming at. He's certainly a complex figure. So Cantacuzinos was a high-ranking Roman general. He witnessed the defeat at Maltepe. But instead of thinking, I need to destroy these Ottomans, he thinks, I can use these guys.
What was his game?
Ambition. Pure and simple. The old emperor dies in 1341, and the heir is a 9-year-old boy, John Palaiologos. Cantacuzinos wants to run the show. He demands to be made co-emperor.
But the boy's mother, the queen mother, and the whole establishment, they say no.
Right. So Cantacuzinos decides to revolt. He starts the civil war, but he has a massive problem. He can't fight the loyalist army in Constantinople and defend the borders from the Turks at the same time.
Right.
He needs a heavy hitter on his side.
So he calls the one man who just humiliated his entire empire. He calls Orhan.
It is the ultimate, the enemy of my enemy is my friend moment. He reaches out to Orhan, proposes an alliance, and to seal the deal, he offers Orhan his daughter, Theodora, in marriage.
Wait, hold on. A Roman general, a Christian, gives his daughter to the Muslim sultan who just conquered their lands.
It just shows you how desperate, or maybe how pragmatic Cantacuzinos was. He needed those Ottoman archers. And for Orhan, this was the jackpot.
Oh, I bet. It's not just a marriage, it's a ticket to the big leagues.
Exactly. He's no longer just some tribal raider. He is now the son-in-law of a potential Roman emperor. He has a legitimate reason to send his armies deep into Roman territory, not as invaders, but as allies.
And this kicks off the Civil War of 1341. And looking at the breakdown of who fought who, it is a total mess.
It's a free-for-all. On one side, you have Cantacuzinos and Orhan. On the other side, you've got the child emperor, his mother, a coalition of Serbia, Bulgaria, and here's the real kicker, the Karazi Turks.
The Karazi, those are Orhan's rivals from the east we mentioned at the start.
The very same. Everyone jumped into the pool. This war dragged on for 6 years, And while the Romans were busy killing each other, Orhan's troops were getting a grand tour of the Balkans. They were learning the geography, the roads, the weaknesses.
They were scouting.
Scouting while getting paid for it.
So who wins the civil war in the end?
Cantacuzene wins. He gets crowned co-emperor. But it's a Pyrrhic victory if there ever was one. The Byzantine Empire is shattered. Serbia and Bulgaria grab huge chunks of land during the chaos. The treasury is empty. The empire is basically just Constantinople and a few coastal towns.
And meanwhile, Orhan is sitting pretty.
He's the real winner.
Yeah.
Because the Karazi Turks bet on the losing side, they were left completely isolated. Orhan uses that momentum to just absorb the Karazi state.
And this is crucial for the geography nerds listening. Taking the Karazi lands puts Orhan right on the coast of the Dardanelles.
The Dardanelles. That narrow strip of water that separates Asia from Europe. For generations, the Turks had looked across that water and dreamed of Gaza in Europe.
Let's unpack that term because the source material brings it up again and again. Gaza. What does it mean in this specific 14th century context?
So Gaza is a complex term, but effectively it means a holy war or a struggle to expand the domain of the state against non-Muslims. A warrior who takes part is a Ghazi.
So it's a religious motivation, but is also tied to state expansion.
They go hand in hand. For Orhan and his father Osman, being a Ghazi was their identity. It gave them legitimacy. So standing on the shore of the Dardanelles, looking at Europe, I mean, that's the ultimate Gaza. Yeah. But they had a problem. No navy. They couldn't just sail an army across.
They needed a bridge or an invitation.
And predictably, our friend Cantacuzene provides it. Again.
You're kidding me. After the Civil War wrecked everything, he calls Orhan again.
He does. It's the mid-1300s now. Cantacuzene is facing another revolt because he's trying to install his own son as king. The people are sick of him. So desperate to hold on to power, he sends a message to his son-in-law. I need the Ottomans back.
But this time, the price has to have gone up. Orhan isn't doing this for free.
Oh yeah, inflation hits hard. Orhan says, fine, I'll help, but I'm done being a tourist. I want a base. A permanent military foothold on the European side. Specifically, he wants the fortress of Gallipoli.
This is the moment, this is the hinge of history right here.
It is. And Cantacuzene agrees. Now, there was also a huge earthquake around 1354 that damaged the walls of Gallipoli, which helped the Ottomans move in fast. But the political agreement was the key. They crossed the Dardanelles and entered Europe, as the source says, without shedding a drop of blood.
They didn't storm the beach like Normandy. They walked in the front door because the owner handed them the key?
Exactly. Orhan sends his son, Suleiman Pasha, to command this new base. And Suleiman is a true Ghazi. He doesn't just sit in the fort waiting for orders. He starts expanding immediately.
He starts eating up Thrace, the region just west of Constantinople.
Village by village, fort by fort. And the Romans panic. They suddenly realize, wait, they aren't going home this time.
So Cantacuzene, who is now probably the most hated man in Constantinople, tries to put the genie back in the bottle.
He begs Orhan. He basically sends a message, okay, thanks for the help. The revolt is over. Please tell your son to evacuate Europe.
And Orhan's response?
He refuses. He frames it religiously. He says he cannot return lands that have been conquered by the Ghazis for Islam. He effectively says, we took it. It's ours now.
That must have been the end for Cantacuzene.
It was. He was overthrown, forced to abdicate, and actually became a monk. He spent the rest of his life writing history books, trying to justify his decisions. But the damage was permanent. The Ottomans had a bridgehead in Europe that they would never, ever give up.
It's just incredible. By the time Orhan dies in 1362, he has completely redrawn the map. He took a tiny state and doubled its size, spanning 2 continents.
He turned a tribal chiefdom into a transcontinental empire. But, as we know with Ottoman history, the death of a sultan is rarely a peaceful affair.
Right, the succession. Orhan had 3 sons, Suleiman, Murad, and Khalil.
Suleiman, the hero of Gallipoli we just talked about, had actually died in a hunting accident just before Orhan passed, so he was out. That left Murad and Khalil, and there is no concept of sharing power.
It's winner takes all.
Murad Ghazi acts fast. He eliminates his brother Khalil.
Fratricide, just like that.
It became a grim tradition to ensure stability. No civil wars if there are no other claimants. So Sultan Murad I takes the throne. And the sources give us a little teaser about what he does next, which really sets up the next century of history.
The army of elite slaves.
Yes. Murad realizes that relying on tribal warriors who are loyal to their own clan leaders is risky. He wants an army loyal only to him. So he institutionalizes this new force. The source calls it the army of elite slaves, but history knows them as the Janissaries.
The backbone of the Ottoman conquest machine for centuries.
Exactly, but that's a deep dive for another day. The point is Orhan built the stage, and Murad built the actors who would perform on it.
So when we step back and look at this whole Ottoman gambit, what's the big takeaway? We've got survival, conquest, political drama all in one.
For me, it's a lesson in the dangers of short-term thinking. The Romans, specifically Cantacuzenos, thought they could control the Ottomans. They treated Orhan like a tool, a piece on a chessboard to help them win their internal fights.
They thought they were the players and Orhan was just a pawn.
Precisely. They invited the wolf into the sheep pen because they thought they held the leash. But the wolf had his own agenda. Cantacuzenos wanted the throne now, and he was willing to mortgage the future security of his entire empire to get it.
It's that classic mistake, prioritizing personal political survival over the survival of the state itself.
And Orhan was brilliant enough to let them do it. He didn't have to break down the walls of Europe. He just waited for the Romans to open the gates for him.
It also makes me think about that rumor again at Maltepe.
It sticks with you, doesn't it?
It really does. It's such a fragile hinge point. If that rumor hadn't spread, if the Roman army had held their ground in 1328 and crushed Orhan's smaller force.
But history looks very, very different. Maybe the Ottomans never expand west. Maybe Constantinople stands for another 500 years.
The butterfly effect. One shout of, "The emperor is dead," in a valley in Turkey eventually leads to the fall of the Roman Empire.
It serves as a powerful reminder that information or misinformation has always been a weapon of war.
A provocative thought to leave you with. Sometimes the map of the world changes, not